So this is going to be another one of those episodes where I tell you a bunch of things you don't want to hear. So go ahead and hit that dislike button right now because that's where we're going. It's going to be that kind of episode. Um, a lot of times when we are coaching somebody and we're talking career advancement, we're trying to map out a plan, 3 to 5 years, where they want to be, what job they want to have, what kind of company they want to work at. We often get in a conversation of skill development and what you're going to need from skill set perspective to achieve that. A lot of times we'll get pushback because they'll say, well, I'm not learning that stuff at my current company, or my current company doesn't offer that, or they don't have a training program that is for advancement or things outside the scope of my job. And this is where we're pretty much just honest with you, and we say it is your responsibility to manage your own career. And I think a lot of times people don't want to hear that. We expect companies to do everything for us. And it's one of those things that no one is looking out for your career other than yourself. Companies are not obligated to give you training options to advance. So some will pay for you to get a grad degree or go to college. Some will pay for you to get certificates. Not everybody will. But you can't sit there and say 20 years later that I'm not where I want to be because the places I worked for didn't give me the tools I needed to succeed. You are 100% responsible for your career and your life. And this is why I'm saying hit the dislike button, because people don't want to hear that. We want everything offered and done for us. We never want someone to go 10 years and not achieve their goals. So a lot of times it's a paradigm shift. You have to get out of that mindset of expecting everyone to do something for you. You talk to people that spent 20 years in a role, they get laid off or let go, there's an economic downturn, and then they have a really tough time getting the next job because, technology's changed so much and they didn't stay up with it. And then they blame their prior company. Well, their prior company didn't train us on technology. Well, you need to work on that yourself. Your prior employers are not responsible for making sure you have a career that lasts 4 decades until you retire at 62. You hope you work for a company that makes investments in you, that sends you out for learning programs, that helps you get certificates. But if they don't, it is not a valid reason to just sit by and do nothing. You got to realize the great companies are also looking for people that are investing in themselves. So when I talk to some of the big companies, we own a handful of recruiting companies as well. We have quite a few companies in our holding company. But they're often looking for people that are curious. They're learners. They're not stagnant. You can't come out of college thinking, I did 4 years of school, I never have to learn anything else for the next 40 years. It doesn't work. It actually puts you in a very terrible spot once you get around 45 or 50 years old. So the thought is, what are you doing to improve yourself? Have you picked up a book lately? I just had an episode on taking a master class. Coursera, you used to be able to pick up, free and or cheap classes to get a certificate. I think MIT used to have some free resources out there for classes. You can go to the Harvard Extension School and you can pick up grad level classes one at a time. One at a time. You don't got to sign up for $100,000, Harvard program. You can spend $2,000 and take a graduate level class and learn something. You can't stay the same person and then expect to advance. But you're responsible for that. You hope you get into a company that will give you those resources or help you with those resources. But if they don't, that is not a valid reason for you to sit around and do nothing. So if you want to get somewhere, you need to learn. You got to pick up a book. You need to go pay for your own education. You got to go spend some time outside of work developing and creating a new craft. You just can't sit around and expect everywhere you work to give you everything you need to have a career from 22 until you retire at 62 or 65. So it's one of those things that, some people get it. There's a lot of people I know that they keep reinvesting in themselves. I have a good friend right now that probably just spent about $200,000 going to get an MBA, for example. It's same person will read books nonstop and take classes, and it's like a constant reinvestment in themselves. You can't sit around and wait for someone else to do it for you. So it's one of those things that you think over the course of a year, you could take a couple online classes, you could read a couple books, you could get your hands on technology. I'll give you a good example. I was talking to somebody and they're having a tough time getting a job in sales. They spent like 25 years in sales, and then all of a sudden they just had a hard time getting jobs. They had a hard time getting interviews. If they did get interviews, they couldn't get a job offer. And I'm like, well, let me know about the technology side of it. What have you done? What have you learned? It's like I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. I don't see Salesforce. It's one of those things that I'm expecting like 90% of people out there who are doing business development / hunting type of sales to have Salesforce on their resume. He replies back with, no companies I ever worked with used Salesforce really. I'm like, all right, what prevents you from just, signing up for Salesforce on a demo? And then I went and I found on LinkedIn they had some training. I'm like, here's some training videos that are all about Salesforce. I'm like, have you done these? He's like, well, no. And I'm like, well, if you do these, then you can put these on your resume, that you at least have the word Salesforce on your resume. So when a recruiter or someone in HR is searching for you, if they're looking for sales manager with the word Salesforce, that you'll pop up. He's like, oh, it's like 7 hours to do all those classes. And I'm thinking, what are you complaining about right now? You're saying you can't get a job and you're not even working, so you don't have 7 hours to go watch these videos to learn about Salesforce, so you can at least say you got some functional knowledge of the major sales CRM out there that's pretty much expected of anybody right now in sales. And it's like he didn't even want to make the investment of 7 hours to go learn a new software. And I'm like, if I remember, his career did not go anywhere from there. He was, expecting his prior employers to get him training on that, even though they didn't run the software at the time. So are you going to spend the last, 15, 20 years of your career struggling because you didn't want to make the investment of learning a new technology? You can't expect anyone to take care of you. You are ultimately responsible for yourself and your career, and that's it. So, again, if you want to get somewhere, this is the channel you want to subscribe to. We will talk about successful people, how they became successful and stay successful, and we're going to give you examples on how people fail. And you can pick and choose which way you want to go. It's easy to read the articles on LinkedIn and some of the social media influencers, and it's all things that you want to hear. We're telling you the things that work, and it's usually the things that are hard to do. It's easy to sit back and blame the company or your last 3 companies for not training you on Salesforce. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting at home unemployed, not knowing what you're going to do with the last decade of your life, that's your fault. And it's very tough to hear that. We're saying don't make that mistake. Keep learning. If you're the same person today that you were last year, you're behind. That is the new world, and it's very unfortunate unless you just want to go work in an Amazon warehouse where you can do the same, repetitive job over and over and over again, and you don't need to learn anything. It also means no career advancement. It means nothing. Keep that in mind. So, anyways, that's all we got for this one. If you have a career question, anything, interviewing, college, graduate school, negotiating a job offer, should you take a counter offer, drop a comment below, or you can visit the Employment Boost website and submit a question, and we'll try to get it featured on the show. Until then, we're going to catch you on the next one.